Can your commander do this? Or this? Or... Hi, my name is Herobi, and I am here to help you get through this war-torn environment that I did not cause myself. In layman's terms, this deck is launching nukes with Herobi. Herobi, I'll put his information here just to talk about him real quick before we get into the video. Basically, anytime Herobi's out, if you target anything, it dies. Nuke. If it's indestructible, it lives. No nuke. If it can't be targeted, no nuke. But also, targeting affects equipable abilities and everybody else's abilities to their own creatures. So if you try to target one of your own creatures while Herobi is out, bye-bye. Let's get into it. So let's start talking about sorceries. There's only 2 of them, and they aren't specifically really building into Herobi himself. They're more so just doing their own thing, just bringing me something that I needed in the deck, like with Sickening Dreams here. Being that it's a discard focus for me, so however many cards I discard, I deal that damage to each creature and each player, including myself, including my own creatures. If I need to get out of a sticky situation with a token creature player, this is something that I have, and I'm running something like this because I typically don't like board wipes at all. I don't really like them. I think it's annoying. I know that sometimes it's necessary, but if you play at a high enough bracket level, typically the games will go fast enough to where the board wipes don't matter, right? And the other one, again, not in here for any reason in particular other than the fact that 1, it's from one of my favorite sets, and 2, it has good value for what I want to do. It's basically like a Temu Gary. You know who Gary is? He's good at doing what this card does better than what this card does, but this is just giving me that non-Gary effect. Basically, I can deal X damage to target creature, right? Which targeting is what Herobi wants to do. Do instants now. So just a quick preface, I'm going to go through these instants a little faster, and I'm going to do that because that with this deck, a lot of these instants are going to be just target effects to trigger Herobi's ability to eliminate other things. And they are also typically, with how I put them together, have some sort of plus side also. So it's not just target creature gets +3, target creature gets -2, target creature this, target creature that. It also usually has like a scry 2 or draw a card or this, that, and the other, right? So it's giving me some value as well as activating the ability to activate what Herobi wants to do. So knowing that, this is just a quick little speed run here of the instance. I'll talk about anything more if it does more outside of just targeting something. Okay, so here's one in particular right here, Imp's Mischief. This is not a card that is specifically doing what Herobi wants to do in regards to eliminating the creatures on the board, right? This is, now again, I will specify, if somebody targets Herobi dies, it is not respondable. Editor SlumpD here real quick, just to talk about the fact that it's not completely unrespondable. I do believe that anything that can counter a triggered ability or anything that can end the turn, I think could. Then the turn one I'm less positive about, but the countering a triggered ability, I think is one of the few ways you could get around the target trigger that Herobi has. Other than that, I do think that it's pretty locked down on how there's only a handful of ways that you can actually interact with it. But with how I said it here, it came off as it's completely unreactable. That's not completely true. It's very difficult to interact with, but it can be interacted with. But okay. Getting back to the video. Even if I have an Imp's Mischief in hand, because it's targeting, it's only based on the targeting, the act of targeting something. You can't respond and save it. It's already been targeted, right? So Imp's Mischief isn't like a get out of jail free card, but it's good value to have in black to give you an extra way of dealing with troublesome spells or spells that could benefit you and you can utilize them for yourself.
What's it saying, my precious, my love?
Dark Ritual. You guys know it's obviously not fitting into what Herobi wants to do, but it's just, we're in mono black. This is giving me black. Vampiric Tutor. The cool thing about this deck is that we do have a tutor. I won't have many tutors, but you're not tutoring for the same thing consistently in this type of deck, right? A lot of the times you have a couple options with what you're wanting to do, what you're tutoring for. You're tutoring for the things that are giving your permanents indestructible Herobi ways of not getting killed by his own ability, or the ways there's like a sundial, I think it's called Sundial of the Infinite, that can basically just like, as long as you cast a spell, you yourself and your permanents can't be targeted. And I think that it's a really cool idea that Vampiric Tutor is something that can get you that card to where you could just then save 3 mana and have a 1 mana spell to cast on each person's upkeep the second it gets their turn, even because the second it is the turn, it sets up that if you cast a spell this turn you can't be targeted. So it's just a very cool way to try to deal with what Herobi's doing. Again, glass cannon. Herobi is not overly strong because he's very easy to target and kill himself, just so you're aware. But Vampiric Tutor, again, not fitting directly in what he does, but it's getting me the cards that I need to make something happen. Just look at this. Look at this card. I know it's just a basic -2/-2 card. God, it's so good looking. So good looking. All right, enchantments. These ones are pretty cool. I actually just recently picked this one up. You guys probably saw the video for it if you've been around recently. Oubliette. This is a pretty freaking cool card. This is an old card too, but it does have a newer version. But this card is infamous to some degree. Basically, it's an exile effect that actually is getting around the commander, the relocation, right? The changing of positions for your commander. You used to kind of get locked out. Like back before they changed the rulings, your commander could get shuffled into your library. And you didn't have the option of putting it to the command zone, right? Nowadays, a lot of those types of effects are kind of null and void, because even if you blink it or exile it, as soon as it's exiled, they can choose to put it into their command zone. So something like Oubliette, because it's not exiling it, it's phasing it out, like it doesn't exist, gets around that mechanic completely. So Oubliette is a great card if you know that you're going to be dealing with troublesome people at the table. Oubliette, troublesome creatures at the table. It allows you to really lock them out and forces them to, if they have removal, they're going to have to use it for Oubliette to get what they want back, not maybe some other pieces on your board state that are important as well. So you're really putting them in a crunch time position and giving yourself some freedom to really, if they were, you know, staxing you out, or if they were doing something to really lock you out with said creature, not even their commander, Oubliette really helps you get around that. Ooh, this card, Virtue of Persistence. You guys probably know what it is. It has also an adventure on it where you can target something, which again, this is perfect for what Herobi wants to do. But the biggest thing about it is that it's a reanimation enchantment, I should say, not spell. But it allows me to play a little bit more fast and loose with Herobi. I have a little bit of reanimation here because I know that Herobi is going to be a target, and I know that there's going to come a point where his commander tax is probably a little high. And I think that I need to lean into the reanimation side of things. Once I get to a certain point with him, it's not going to be realistic to recast him. I need to lean into, hey, I either need to make them deal with my reanimation spells or my reanimation enchantments or whatever that I have that's reanimating to stop me from bringing Herobi back constantly, or they have to deal with Herobi so many times before I get any reanimation that I can't do anything, and I kind of get locked out, right? So something like Virtue of Persistence is really cool though, because it allows me to target with its adventure, but then I also now can pull from any graveyard, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard. And that's the biggest thing. I get value for myself, but let's say I don't have any value in my graveyard. This is giving me value from everybody else's, right? And especially if I've been killing their creatures with the target ability of Herobi constantly, like point and shoot, like nuke, right? There's going to be creatures in the graveyard. Virtue Persistence can now be like, yoink. Cutting Rhetoric. This one is interesting. It's basically like making people second guess attacking you, right? It's a very interesting card. I think this is a card that's, again, 50-50 on whether people love it or hate it. I think this is a sick card, but I do understand why people dislike it. We get fucked, because I don't care. Truthfully though, I do get it, but you have to play around it. You need removal for something like this, but basically it's allowing me to skim the tops of their library if they attack me. So like, okay, if you want to hit me for a lot of damage, I might let that through, but guess what? I'm also going to exile the top card of your library, and I'm going to play it. And I can spend, if it's a different color spell, I'm able to play it, right? So it's not like I can only play a black, like I have to get lucky enough to pull a black spell and then you only play that. No, I can play whatever spell they get as long as I have the mana for it. So, value. Retreat to Hagra. This one's pretty cool. It's a landfall enchantment, and I'm literally the main reason it's in here. Not even for the each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, because I don't have a lot of like, I have a lot of basic lands, not something that's gonna come in, stack itself, tutor up another land, right? I'm not doing the typical landfall shtick. This is basically just anytime I play a land, I can target something with Herobi being out, and so a land is now triggering my Herobi targeting ability. Just as many ways to do the thing as possible. No Mercy is another card that's kind of similar to Cunning Rhetoric, except you're not getting the benefit of skimming their deck and using one of their cards. This is just like, hey, if it deals damage, if you deal damage to me, your creature dies. Again, letting people know, like, do not mess with me. Morning Song Area is a really interesting card. I actually, when I pulled this card, I didn't think I would ever use it or like it. Come to find out, it has a really cool combo with Opposition Agent. And so in this deck, I do have the Morning Song Aria, and Opposition Agent combo. I know some people might not like me, but that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. Opposition Agent is a game changer that says when an opponent would search their library, instead I control them while they're searching the library. So you get to basically do the searching. And so each basically time it gets to somebody else's turn, you are searching their library. Haunted Crossroads, another just reanimation, right? Put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library for 1 black. I love this card. I feel like I don't see a lot of people talk about this card or use this card. Very cool. For the creatures. This one's an interesting group. There's going to be some cards you know, and there's going to be some cards that you probably have no idea what the hell they are. And let's begin. Sorceress Queen. Very old card. You can even tell by the tap mana. Tap mana. The tap symbol. Sorry about that. Make another creature 0/2 until end of turn. Treat this exactly as if the numbers were lower right of the target card were 0/2. All the special characteristics and enchantments of the creature are unaffected. Target creature gets 0/2 until end of turn. Did you get that? Okay, good. Now that you understand. Here we go. This is the card we were talking about with Morning Song or Morn Song Aria? Morning Song Aria? Well, you know enough. Opposition Agent is a 3/2 for 3 human rogue with flash. Flash being important. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find, and you may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. So basically, each opponent's turn, you are using this Opposition Agent and Mornsong Aria to tutor your opponent's decks for cards that you want for yourself, that you can cast with mana of any color. Oh, good. Orcish Bowmaster is the other follow-up, and the main reason this is in here, okay, and I will say, Orcish Bowmasters at lower brackets is typically not good, actually. But the biggest thing about this is any instance of somebody else drawing a second card, I get a target ability. And then I'm amassing orcs, which is also putting more bodies on the board for me. So that's why I justified it. I had the card already, and I'm like, well, I do think that with what Herobi wants to do, if everybody would have to then be worried about drawing a second card anytime, because I could then just target something on their board state and take it out. So very cool. It is, you know, definitely one of those like high risk, high reward. Sometimes it will give you no payoff. There'll be nothing. But sometimes you will be on a pod that they do not ever draw a second card in their turn, and you're just like, so it's 8 mana. It's 8 colorless, right? Obviously that's a little steep. But being that it's colorless, it's not 8 black pips. You know, you can cheat this out quicker than quicker than turn 8. It's a 0/30 defender. It does not have indestructible, but the biggest thing about it is that other permanents you control have indestructible. So with Walls of Bossing Say out, Herobi is indestructible. Now the Walls of Bossing Say is not, so they have to target the Walls of Bossing Say to remove the indestructibility from all your permanents, to then target Herobi to remove the target trigger. So this is definitely a card that struggles to find a home, but in this deck, I think it fits very nicely. Hex Parasite. My biggest question was, what if a permanent doesn't have any counters, right? Are you still allowed to activate and target something? Or does it say, you can't target this because it doesn't have what you're looking for with the ability? And he, to my knowledge, explained to me that you can activate this ability and target something that doesn't have counters to still get the trigger from Herobi. So you might be able to put 0 into that and just pay the 2 life, and then you can target something and activate Herobi. So you can pay 2 life, pay 2 life, pay 2 life, and just keep pinging everything. Termination Facilitator. Basically put a bounty counter on target creature, right? Again, tap, target. Target's what we're looking for. That's what you guys probably heard. Grim Hireling. This is a cool card. I've had this for a while and I was trying to find a home for it, and I finally did in this deck. So the reason this is in here, it's not even like, I'll be doing combat damage because I'm killing everybody's creatures, right? So most likely the thought process is I would have openings to swing. So, you know, I can be making treasures in theory. But the cool thing is, I think we're kind of going back to what we just talked about with the other one, right? Where I can pay a black. If I sacrifice 0 treasures, I'm pretty sure that I can still just go ahead and do the target, right? I'm targeting it for -0/-0. I think that's still legal because all I need to do is target it. So the cool thing is you pay 1 black, put none into the X because you don't have to sack any treasures if you don't want, right? If you need to keep your treasures or something, and you still can target. Again, if I'm wrong, let me know. First of all, before I tell you what it is, this foiling is some of my favorite. It's hard to tell. You can see it a lot more down here. But like this sunburst area, the effect that the foiling has there is so cool. This is Royal Assassin. It's an interesting card, right? Because people would typically say C, 3 mana, 1/1, and kind of be like, it's not really good value. And typically I would agree. But the cool thing about this card is that it taps to destroy target tapped creature. So outside of what Herobi wants to do, this card is actually really cool and really useful in a lot of black decks. So if you don't know Royal Assassin, I'll maybe put up a picture of it in non-Japanese so you could read it for yourself. If you don't know Royal Assassin, you should put it in more decks. This is a very cool card, but with what Herobi's wanting to do, it also is useful too, because you're still targeting things. But the nice thing about this card is that with or without Herobi, it's destroying whatever it is that's tapped, as long as it's not indestructible. Triskelion. God, I am yapping this video, but I'm trying to talk more. I should specify, I'm trying to talk more and explain more about why the cards are in the deck. So I hope that's appreciated. It's a 6 mana 1/1. When it comes into play, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And for 0, you can remove one of these counters and have it deal 1 damage to target creature again. So you can, if you have more ways to put counters on it, it's even better, right? But just removing counters from this to target. That's what we're looking for, targeting abilities. So this isn't one of the strongest ones, but it's definitely a good fit for the deck. Shieldred. This is the flip Shieldred. She flips to the True Scriptures on the back, which I can show you, but let's talk about the front side first. 5 mana, 4/5 with Menace. When she enters, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. And that's a big thing, specifying that non-token really puts people into a bind, especially my buddy who loves tokens and overrunning me with tokens, Chatterfang. This forces him to have to sack typically something from his engine that is making the tokens, because it's making him sack something that's a non-token, right? But then for 5 mana at sorcery speed, I'm sure. Yeah, at sorcery speed and 8 or more cards in their graveyard for an opponent, you exile her and then flip her. So let's do that real quick so you can see her booty. So when she flips to the True Scriptures, the first one is basically just removal, right? Each opponent then discards 3 cards, then mills 3 cards for the next step of it. Again, that's really big. Forcing opponents to discard 3 is very tough, especially if you're in mid game where cards are super important and people don't have full grip sometimes. If you're making them discard 3 and then mill 3, you could really put them in a tough spot. They could be, no cards in hand, and then they could just mill, 2 or 3 important cards from the top of their library that they might need. Then the coolest part though is at 3, mass resurrection, baby. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under my control, and then you basically turn it back to Mother. Giggling Skitter Spike, indestructible. Main reason I have it in here, but you can pay 5, make it monstrous. And then whenever it blocks or becomes a target, it deals damage. So it's just another way to deal damage. And I mean, honestly, kind of its own win condition and just beating face. Kalitas, very cool card. Basically, he's a 3/4 lifelinker that says anytime an opponent has a creature die, it's going to exile instead, and then I get to make a token. Building up my board state, removing access to their board state. Good. Target. That's why he's in here. Target. This one is really cool. So I actually was debating getting rid of this card for the longest time because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this card. I loved the set. I loved Edge of Eternities a lot, but I'm like a 2 mana 4/1 with Menace, Ward, discard a card. Really cool, really sick sounding so far. But then it's like when it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and opponent controls. Like that's kind of like that kind of sucks. For him being 4/1, he could die and I'm like pumping somebody else's stuff, especially if they could take advantage of that. But then I'm like, well, in this deck, dude, that's insane because I get to take advantage of every one of his benefits. And then whenever I put a counter on target creature, if Herobi's out, I'm killing the creature that I'm targeting. So, and it's when it attacks, so I can kill the creature before it is able to deal any damage to Sunset Saboteur. Creepy Doll, it's basically like Giggling Skitter Spike, indestructible, 1/1, and then dealing damage, destroying creatures. Erebos, devotion based to stop, like, you know, if I'm playing against a life gain deck, that would kind of smoke this deck because they can just sustain life for a long time and then probably remove my stuff before I can take advantage of it. So stopping them from getting a lot of life at least keeps me in the game a lot easier. And he's indestructible, massive for what Herobi's doing. And then also added bonus here that you can pay 2 mana, 2 life, and draw a card. Dalthy Trapper. This one's interesting again. 3 mana, 1/1. Guess what? Target. And now obviously you can read into this. If I don't have Herobi out, these tap target abilities, I can still utilize them. I can still use them. They're still good tap target abilities. A lot of these things that I'm showing you can be used without Herobi on the board. With Herobi on the board, they also can be used as like removal pieces, not just like ramp or benefiting me outside of the aspect of target destroy type of mechanic. So very cool. This is a sleeper card. I actually haven't talked about this card yet. I'm so happy now I finally get to. This is, I think, slowly becoming one of my favorites that I just don't get to use very often. Vashta Narada. It's a 3 mana 1/1, shadow and indestructible, right? Very cool combination of things. And then, dude, I can't begin. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, put a +1/+1. She has her own evasion, right? Being shadow and indestructible. She's a 1/1 that is also on removal of other creatures, growing and becoming harder and harder to kill, as well as dealing more damage. Super cool card, slept on card. I feel like more people need to be talking about this or using this card. I feel like it has a home in a lot of decks and I just don't see it. I don't see people using it. Use this card more. This wall. Tap target. Scuttlemutt. Add 1 mana. Target creature. So I can either tap it to add mana, or I can tap it. Target. Another really cool card, Bounty Hunter. 4 mana 2/2, but guess what? Put a bounty counter. Target. Destroy. Target. That's what we're looking for. All right. Artifacts. Arguably one of the most important parts of this deck to some degree, because there's a lot of the ways to sneakily evade my own triggers against myself. And from a pure value standpoint, this is Mirage Mirror. A lot of people probably know this card. This is a very cool card, but basically you can just have it become a copy of any creature, enchantment, or land on the battlefield until end of turn. Cauldron of Souls. This one with Herobi is a very cool interaction because it's choose any number of target creatures. So for 5 mana with Herobi being out, I could tap this and board wipe everybody's creatures that don't have indestructible. Entral Basin. Again, X, +1/+1 counters. Target creature. Acorn Catapult. This one's pretty cool. For a generic too, deals 1 damage to target creature that player controller puts a 1/1 green squirrel onto the battlefield. So it's kind of like how you can get around, like this is a nicer way of doing it. It's like, hey, I'm removing it, but I'm giving you a replacement. 1/1. You got a little fella out of it now. Requiem Monolith. Tap until end of turn, target creature. But it's really cool though, because what its actual ability is, if you don't have Herobi out, is just drawing a lot of cards in black. And drawing cards is always fun, but drawing a lot of cards in black, people get so scared. So drawing a lot of cards is always cool. Most people that play in higher bracket decks or higher bracket pods probably know this card. Unwinding Clock, very cool card. Very strong card. Untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap stuff. So every other player's untap, you are untapping all your artifacts. Jet Medallion, the Darkness Crystal. First of all, love the art on this card. I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, but this art is just great and the foiling is good. Again, cost reducer, right? We're getting a colorless reduction. But then it says, if a non-trigger creature an opponent controls would die. So remember Kalitas, right? Or Kalitas. Whenever something would die, he would exile it and then would create a 2/2 token. Well, this is kind of doing a similar thing where we're getting great value for killing other people's creatures. They're exiled. Good luck. Unless you have cards that can play anything from exile, which a lot of people don't run any of those. Some do though. This card is kind of just really shutting down people's engines or win conditions. But the big thing here, right? So for 4 generic and 2 black, you can put target creature card exiled with the Darkness Crystal onto the battlefield tapped under your control. The really cool thing about this is that because what's happening, Herobi is killing things on target, but because what the Darkness Crystal is doing is exiling things under it, when you pay 6 and use its ability to target a creature that was exiled, because it's gone, it's not in existence, it's off the board state, right? It doesn't exist in play currently as a playable creature, it's exiled. This card is allowed to target it and bring it onto the board state, and it enters the battlefield tapped with the counters. It doesn't say to put to target it and put counters on it either. So to my fully extent, if I'm reading the card and explaining the card, the Darkness Crystal fully gets around his targeting ability when you're bringing things back exiled with it as well. Very cool. Veilstone Amulet, one of the biggest proponents and key aspects of this deck is this right here. One of the biggest, most important things about this deck. Whenever you play a spell, creatures you control can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control until end of turn. This turn, I should say, but yeah. This is the card I was talking about earlier that says basically if you keep 3 mana up and have 3 1/1 castable spells in your hand, to save your Herobi, this basically when you cast a spell at the beginning of somebody else's turn allows you to not then have it be targeted. Glaring Spotlight. The beginning part of it is actually kind of cool. I don't know how many people use it for that in particular, but it is value. It is great value. It's actually, people should use it more because of Swiftfoot Boots and things of that nature. But creature your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. So it's not getting around Shroud, right? It's not getting around phasing, but hexproof is pretty common and pretty popular and sometimes very difficult to deal with. So having something like this, I think is this should be a staple card in my opinion. But for 3 colorless, you can sack it and creatures that you control gain hexproof until end of turn and they are unblockable, right? Again, targeting is faster than the spell resolving. So if somebody targets Herobi, this can't save it. But if you have a feeling and somebody's about to untap and really rock your shit because you dealt with them, you could do this in response to them untapping their lands before they have a chance to cast anything. You could do this and make yourself hexproof and save and give yourself that one more turn cycle, hopefully, right? Thornbite Staff, really cool. If any of those creatures had the tap and target ability, that's fine, but Thornbite in and of itself does the same thing, right? The issue is you have to equip this to whatever creature you're going to be using before Herobi is out. So that's the weird thing about this, is that you can't equip anything to any of your creatures if Herobi is out. It kills them. It's a target. You're targeting something, paying 4 mana, targeting it to equip it. So the cool interaction with Thornbite is that you need to have it pre-planned on who you want it on so that when Herobi comes out, you don't have to equip it and kill the creature that you wanted to use. So making you think, making you work hard for it. I like that. Okay. This card, we probably should have saved, that's actually, we'll save that one for last because that one has a little bit of extra explaining. The Tooth of Chisgoria. Affinity for artifacts, which is cool. It's only 3 mana though, so that's not super important. But you can play it at instant speed. Very cool. And you tap it and target creature gets +1/+0, right? Just another tap target. Target ability is what we're looking for, and that's what we got. Same thing with Liquid Metal Torque here. It's a mana dork to some degree. I mean, it's tapping to give me colorless. That's not crazy for 2 mana, but it's still good, not terrible. It's not a 3 mana tap for 1. But the biggest part, again, tap target. Tap target. That's what we're looking for. Target non-land permanent becomes an artifact. Just doesn't matter what it doesn't matter. It says target non-land permanent. If I've targeted somebody's non-land permanent, being that it's a creature, because Herobi cares about creatures, Herobi would be like, oh, you targeted a creature, and then it kills it. Doesn't matter. And then the important thing here, and why I have this off to the side, so that we can talk about this, is in any monocolored deck I run, I almost 90% of the time, there's only, I think, one monocolored deck I have that doesn't have this in there, is Extraplanar Lens and snow-covered lands of whatever color. If you are in a monocolored deck and you are not doing this, you are missing out on value. Extraplanar Lens is such a cool card. For 3 mana, you can exile a named land under it. With snow-covered lands, comparing them to basic lands, they are differently named lands. It doesn't matter that a swamp and a snow-covered swamp still say swamp. Extraplanar Lens cares about the name down to its legal form. Snow-covered swamp is different than swamp. So whenever you play Extraplanar Lens and you exile a snow land under it, now any other land you have of the same name, i.e. snow-covered swamp, taps for double. So all of these lands here, right, now would then tap for double what they are. So if you have set up and you have something like this, what you can do is have a surprise explosive turn because you've, in theory, completely doubled your mana. And it's obviously not taking into consideration too what we have next here, which I'll use as a segue in, is Cabal Coffers, right? Cabal Coffers, you can pay 2 colorless into it, so you could tap 1 snow-covered swamp because of Extraplanar Lens to pay for Cabal Coffers' cost, to tap it, and then add a black for each swamp you have. So this, you can tap Cabal Coffers for, let's say if you have 7, right? You can tap Cabal Coffers for 7 black mana. You had paid 2, right? So if you have 7 lands, because this is exiled, so you have 7 lands, that's 14 more mana that you can produce in just tapping the actual swamps themselves outside of the 7 that Cabal Coffers is just giving you. And then if you take a step further, Nykthos, devotion-based land, 2 colorless, choose a color, add any amount of mana that color equal to your devotion to that color. We are playing in a mono black deck. Our devotion is nothing but colorless and mono black, right? So what you're going to see is that you have these plays that you can full swing like 20 plus mana. If you have the cards that can utilize the mana, you have it. This deck can provide it. It's very cool. It's very explosive when you wouldn't expect it from a monocolored deck that has this many basics, right? But some people don't know. They don't know the sauce. They don't know the juice about the Extraplanar Lens. And then the last lands aren't anything too crazy, right? Memorial to Folly. I should specify the reason this is in here is the recursion aspect of it, by the way. The only reason. This one is in here because it actually affects what Herobi wants to do. It's a very cool card. And actually, I did see somebody post about this, that they use it against Voltron decks. Super big brain, and I didn't even think about that until they had mentioned it. This is a cool card that I think could be actually a staple card if more people understood its interaction with Voltron or artifact heavy equipables, right? It can tap for a colorless, whatever, fine. You pay 1 colorless into it, target creature gains protection from artifacts to end of turn. So my Codas deck, right? If you played Tower of Magistrate, paid 1, tapped it, and made Codas gain protection from artifacts, he says, oh, and takes all of those artifacts, those Voltron pieces, those swords and whatever, he just takes them off and shoves them aside. He's naked. So super cool interaction with Tower of Magistrate. I do think that, you know, for this deck, it's just using it to target, right? But I do think that this could be a staple card for a lot of people. And then Mortuary Mire. This one's pretty straightforward. Again, when it enters, it's, you know, recurring something for me. So Herobi's probably going to die a lot. A lot of my other things are probably going to die a lot. I need ways of bringing them back to life. Bring to life. So yeah, that has been the Herobi deck. I'm sure I'll talk a little bit more outside of this in post, in editing a little bit. But Herobi is very cool. He's very much a glass cannon though, and he will not be able to compete once you get above a bracket 3. I think even a bracket 3, if they're built well, a lot of bracket 3s and if they're smart, they're just going to target Herobi. So you have to play Herobi smart, and you have to play your hand smart. You know, recursion being important, ways to not have to just pay his cost every time, because he is going to be removed. He's going to cause a lot of chaos for people, and they're going to be like, oh dude, what's making everything die when you target? Yeah, let's get rid of that, because you have to understand everybody else can't use their Swiftfoot boots. Everybody else can't use their lightning greaves. Everybody else can't use anything that's targeting anything because of Herobi, right? One of those things where this deck is so cool. The flavor is just, we're up here, man. If we're talking flavor, I know it's not the most powerful, but dude, it doesn't get much more cool than playing a deck that's literally point and shoot. Like, you know, just like I'm pointing and a nuke is leaving my finger at whatever I'm pointing at. So thank you guys for watching. I'll probably yap a little bit more here after, but I've yapped so long. Bye.